Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive.
Always fun to dig into a new topic.
Right, so today we're going to be looking at this relationship between economic growth and inclusive development.
Oh, very interesting.
Yeah, and our main source material for this is an outline actually from a company called Haptic R&D Consulting.
I'm not familiar.
Yeah, they do a lot of research on this kind of stuff, and they seem to be really big on innovation, as the way to make growth work for everyone.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But the big question is, can we really have booming economies that actually benefit everybody?
Right, not just the select few.
Exactly.
That's kind of the classic view of economic growth, right? It brings more investment, more jobs, more progress overall.
Yeah, the rising tide lifts all boats idea.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But the problem is, what happens when not everybody has a boat? That's where inclusive development comes in.
Ah, okay. So it's more like a rising tide that lifts all boats.
Exactly, not just the yachts.
That makes sense.
We need to make sure that those benefits of growth are shared by everyone, reaching even the most vulnerable folks.
And that's where Haptic seems to think that innovation is the key ingredient.
Yeah, they talk a lot about transforming markets, in
Yeah.
a way that benefits businesses and communities.
So is innovation really the magic solution here?
Well, it definitely has the potential to be a really powerful force for positive change.
Okay.
Think about it like this. As a nation grows wealthier, they can invest more in things like infrastructure, education, healthcare, the building blocks of a healthy society.
Right. Those things tend to improve as an economy grows.
Exactly.
But the source also mentions some pretty worrying downsides too, right? Like growing inequality, social instability.
Oh, yeah, for sure. That's the flip side.
Almost like a ticking time bomb.
You're right. Growth without inclusion, it's like building a skyscraper on a shaky foundation.
Ooh, I like that analogy.
It might look impressive for a while, but eventually the whole thing's going to come crashing down.
So where does innovation come in?
Well, Haptic seems to think that things like automation, AI, green technologies, they can all completely revolutionize industries.
Making them more efficient.
Yeah, and even opening up whole new markets.
Okay, but is that just hype, or is there really substance to that?
I think it's more than just hype.
Okay.
What's so cool about innovation is that it can actually be used to address inequalities directly
Oh, interesting.
by tailoring solutions to specific needs.
Give me an example.
Sure, one example from the source is affordable healthcare technology powered by AI.
Okay.
Imagine that tech reaching underserved populations, like in remote areas, providing diagnoses, treatment options that they wouldn't have had before.
Yeah, that would be huge.
Totally a game changer.
But that brings up the whole issue of the digital divide, right?
Ah.
If big chunks of the population don't have access to tech or the internet, how are they going to benefit from any of this?
That's a really important point and a major hurdle we need to overcome.
So it's not just about handing someone a smartphone.
Right. It's about giving them the ability to actually use it to improve their lives.
Exactly. Haptic also makes a big deal about the role of businesses in all this.
Oh, yeah.
They say companies need to move beyond just profits and really actively embrace inclusive practices.
How do we actually make that happen, though, right?
Yeah, it's easy to say be more inclusive, but what does that look like in the real world?
Well, one example they give is renewable energy solutions.
Okay.
Think about it. They can bring power to those remote regions we were talking about, fuel local economies, create jobs in communities that have been left behind.
So it's not charity. It's about creating a sustainable system that benefits everybody involved.
Precisely.
I like that. What about an industry like healthcare? How would that work?
Well, the source talks about how those affordable healthcare technologies powered by AI can extend quality care to underserved populations.
Even in remote areas.
Exactly, using tech to bridge that gap between the haves and have-nots.
Okay, so we're really talking about a completely different way of thinking about growth. Then it's not just about increasing GDP. It's about making sure that growth is sustainable and reaches everyone.
Absolutely.
But I'm going to play devil's advocate here for a second.
Go ahead.
Are we maybe being a little too optimistic about technology? Can we really close the digital divide?
It's a tough challenge.
How do we make sure people not only have access, but they also have the skills to actually thrive in a digital world?
You bring up a really important point. Just having access isn't enough. The source actually stresses that we need a multi-pronged approach here.
Okay.
We need to expand digital infrastructure and empower individuals with the skills and knowledge they need.
And how do we do that?
Well, that's where the innovation in e-learning comes in,
Okay.
Picture this. You can learn valuable skills from anywhere in the world at any time at an affordable price.
Yeah, that would be amazing.
Right, these platforms, they have the potential to totally revolutionize access to education.
So everyone can benefit from the opportunities that a digital economy offers.
Yeah,
So bridging that digital divide is going to require a lot of different things then.
it's a combination of infrastructure education and a whole lot of innovation.
And we can't forget about the role of businesses in all this either.
Absolutely. They have a responsibility to go beyond just chasing profits.
Right.
They need to actively embrace those inclusive practices,
I
thinking about how their products and services can be designed to benefit a wider range of people, including those who have been traditionally excluded.
And governments too, right? They have a part to play.
Oh, for sure. Governments can create policies that incentivize those inclusive practices.
Like what?
Well, think about things like tax breaks for companies investing in sustainable technologies, or grants for startups focused on serving marginalized communities.
So it's about creating an environment where doing good and doing well aren't seen as separate things.
Yeah, exactly. They should go hand in hand.
Which leads to another interesting point Haptic makes.
What's that?
They argue that sustainability itself can be a driver of economic growth.
Like turning a problem into an opportunity.
Exactly.
Businesses should be looking at sustainability as a market opportunity.
Not a burden.
Right. Investing in technologies that meet both economic A&D environmental needs, that's good for the planet, A&D good for business.
So wrapping up part one, it seems like Haptic's vision is a future where businesses balance profit with purpose. Governments incentivize those inclusive practices, and we have a global focus on those sustainable development goals.
That's a pretty ambitious vision.
It is, but what are the actual steps we need to take to get there?
Yeah, what does this look like in the real world?
That's a great question, and one that we'll be digging into in the next part of our deep dive.
Can't wait. So we were just talking about how businesses need to kind of shift their thinking, you know?
Yeah, move beyond just focusing on profits.
Right. Think more holistically about their impact.
Okay, so how do we actually see that happening?
Well, Haptic gives a really interesting example in the energy sector.
Yeah.
They talk about the potential of renewable energy solutions.
Like solar and wind power.
Exactly. Things like that.
Okay.
Think about the impact they can have. I mean, they can bring electricity to remote regions, you know,
Right.
fuel local economies, create job opportunities in communities that have been kind of left behind.
It's a win-win all around.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's not just about charity, it's about building a system that benefits everyone involved.
Exactly, a sustainable system.
What other industries are ripe for that kind of transformation?
Well, healthcare is another big one.
Okay.
Haptic highlights the potential of these affordable healthcare technologies powered by AI.
AI in healthcare is really fascinating.
It is, right.
Can you tell me more about that?
Sure. Imagine a world where people in remote areas who might not have access to a doctor can use their smartphone to get diagnosed
Wow.
and receive treatment recommendations.
From an AI-powered app.
Exactly.
That's incredible.
It could completely change how we think about healthcare access.
But it all comes back to that digital divide, doesn't it?
Yeah, unfortunately.
If people don't have access to technology or the internet, these solutions aren't going to reach them.
You're absolutely right. Bridging that digital divide is crucial if we want to make inclusive development a reality.
So what can we do about that?
Well, Haptic stresses the importance of expanding digital infrastructure,
Okay.
making sure everyone has access to reliable and affordable internet.
Right.
That access opens up so many opportunities.
For businesses to reach new markets.
Exactly. And for individuals to learn new skills, connect with others, even start their own businesses.
Okay, so we provide access. That's the first step.
Right.
But then how do we make sure people actually know how to use these tools effectively?
That's a great question. And that's where the power of e-learning comes in.
Yeah.
Haptic talks about how these platforms can really democratize education.
In what way?
Well, imagine you can learn valuable skills from anywhere in the world.
At any time.
Exactly. And at a price you can afford.
That would be game-changing.
Like it really would be.
But developing these kinds of solutions, it takes a lot of collaboration.
Right. No, it does. We need businesses, governments, and communities all working together.
To create a truly inclusive and sustainable future.
Exactly. No one can do this alone.
So what are some specific ways that governments can support this shift?
Well, Haptic suggests that governments can play a big role in incentivizing inclusive practices.
Yeah.
They can offer tax breaks for companies that invest in sustainable technologies, or provide grants to support startups that are focused on serving marginalized communities.
So it's about encouraging businesses to prioritize social impact.
Alongside profit, exactly.
And when those two goals are aligned, that's when we see real progress.
I agree.
Haptic also talks about this idea of sustainability as a driver of economic growth.
Right.
It's about seeing sustainability as an opportunity, not a burden.
Exactly. For example, investing in renewable energy.
Okay.
It not only helps mitigate climate change, but it creates new industries and jobs.
So it's good for the planet, the economy.
It's a win-win.
So as we wrap up this part of our deep dive, it's clear that inclusive development requires a multifaceted approach.
It does.
We need innovative businesses creating solutions,
Right.
governments providing supportive policies.
And individuals embracing those sustainable practices.
It's a team effort.
For sure.
But the good news is that these changes aren't just idealistic dreams.
Right.
They're achievable goals.
With real-world examples.
We've seen that.
It's an exciting vision of the future.
Where everyone has the opportunity to benefit.
From economic growth.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So what are Haptic's specific recommendations for making this vision a reality?
Yeah, how do we actually get there?
That's where we'll pick up in the final part of our deep dive.
Okay, so we're back for the final part of our deep dive, into economic growth and inclusive development.
We've covered a lot of ground
We have.
from, the potential problems with traditional growth models
Right.
to that whole idea of the power of innovation.
But now I really want to hear what Haptic has to say about actually making this vision a reality. Right, how do we get there?
What are the concrete steps?
So it seems like they believe it starts with a mindset shift,
Okay.
especially for businesses.
Okay. In what way?
Well, they need to move beyond just thinking about short-term profit
Right.
and embrace a more holistic approach,
What does that mean?
thinking about their purpose as well.
So not just how much money they're making.
Right, but also their impact on the world.
So less focus on those quarterly earnings.
Exactly, and more on long-term sustainability.
Okay. I like that idea.
The source suggests that businesses should be asking themselves, how can we use what we have,
Our resources and expertise.
right, to generate profit, but also to make a positive social impact?
So it's recognizing that those two goals don't have to be at odds.
Yeah, they can actually work together.
It's like that saying, give a man a fish, you feed him for a day.
Teach a man to fish, you feed him for a lifetime.
Exactly. But in this case, we're talking about empowering people,
Right, giving them the tools to create their own well-being.
not just offering a temporary fix.
That's a great way to put it.
So what about the role of government in all this?
Oh, they're definitely a big part of the equation.
Okay, how so?
Haptic says that governments need to create policies that encourage those inclusive practices.
Give me some examples.
Sure, think about things like tax breaks for companies that are making sustainable investments,
right.
or grants to support startups that are focused on serving marginalized communities,
So using those policy tools
to kind of nudge businesses in the right direction.
and level the playing field a bit.
Exactly.
It's like giving businesses a little push sometimes.
Right, to make sure they're prioritizing those social goals as well.
So it sounds like creating a more inclusive economy really requires everybody working together.
Yeah, it's multifaceted.
Businesses stepping up, governments providing support,
Yeah.
and individuals making conscious choices.
Right, about how they consume and participate in the economy.
It's a collective effort.
Absolutely.
And that brings us to Haptic's final thought, which I thought was really powerful.
What was that?
They said economic growth shouldn't come at the expense of inclusion.
Right.
Innovation has the power to drive equitable development.
But we have to be deliberate about it.
Yeah, we can't just sit back and expect it to happen on its own.
We need to be proactive in our efforts to build a more just and equitable world.
Using innovation to solve those problems, create opportunities, make sure everybody has a chance to thrive.
That's the goal.
So to all of our listeners out there, Haptic's call to action is pretty clear.
What is it?
Think about how you can contribute to a world where economic growth benefits everyone.
It's a question we should all be asking ourselves.
It doesn't matter if you're a business leader making decisions about investments,
Or a policymaker shaping the rules.
or just an individual making choices about where you spend your money.
Your actions matter.
And to leave you with one final thought-provoking question to ponder.
Okay, I'm ready.
If innovation really is the key to unlocking inclusive development,
Hmm.
what are the most promising areas for investment and development in the coming years?
That's a good question.
What kind of future do we want to build, and how can we use our creativity to get there?
The possibilities are endless.
They really are.
Yeah.
Well, that brings us to the end of our deep dive into economic growth and inclusive development.
It's been a fascinating conversation.
It really has. Thank you all for joining us on this journey.
We'll see you next time.
Until then, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep striving to make the world a more inclusive and equitable place for everyone.